As the vastness of space stretched into an endless void, humanity's colonization projects continued to expand rapidly. However, a bad surprise was inevitable. The pioneer ship Erebus was on its way to Exo 12, Earth's most distant colony, when it encountered an unknown threat. In the ship's command room, Captain Osric and his crew were analyzing the strange objects they had just detected. Advanced sensors had picked up unusual activity deep in space. "What could this be?" Osric asked, frowning. Science Officer Inara was focused on her screen. "The signal doesn't match any known galactic vessels," she said, her voice tense. "But their speed is terrifying. They're moving at light speed." At that moment, the ship shook violently. Something out there, an invisible threat, was attacking. "Activate all defense systems," Osric ordered. This was their first encounter with the Night Hunters. Invisible enemies that moved through the dark, striking with unseen force. These beings, who could move at the speed of light, were unlike anything humanity had faced before. Osric's crew was helpless. The ship's defenses were failing, and their communication systems were down, leaving them unable to call for help. Talon, a young engineer, was frantically trying to activate the emergency escape modules. "If this keeps up, we're done for," Talon shouted, as the attacks continued without pause. Every passing second brought more damage and casualties. Inara was thinking aloud, her mind racing. What did they find? Why are they only attacking in the dark? She muttered to herself before a sudden realization hit her. "They don't like the light," she exclaimed. Osric turned to her. "What do you mean?" Inara continued. "They can fight at light speed, but their abilities only work in the darkness. Light might be their weakness." Osric narrowed his eyes. "How do we use that?" There was a moment of silence. Talon jumped in. "The ship's light batteries are still operational. If we create a massive flash, we could blind them." Osric made his decision. "If it works, it's our only chance. Prepare everything." The countdown began. The crew was tense, knowing this was their last hope. When Talon pressed the final button, the ship's exterior lit up suddenly. Everything around them was flooded with a blinding light. For the first time, the Night Hunters became visible. Their sharp, sleek ships trembled and faltered, disoriented by the sudden brightness. The crew could finally see them clearly. But this was just the beginning. Upon arriving at Exo 12, Cressida, one of the Exo Alliance's most seasoned military leaders, had already been briefed on the limited data Osric had managed to send. The news of this new threat had sent shockwaves through both the colony's scientists and military. Humanity was facing a threat that required both military strength and strategic insight. Captain Osric's report about the light flashes was promising, but not a complete solution. Cressida sat in the war room with Fennel, a young physicist. They were studying the first images of the Night Hunters. "If they're really this vulnerable to light, how can we make it more effective?" Fennel asked, deep in thought. Cressida spoke calmly, but with determination. "Light alone won't be enough. We need something that will disable them and keep them down for good. There has to be another weakness." Suddenly, Fennel's eyes lit up. "Sound waves. Some species are extremely sensitive to high-frequency sounds. If we combine light and sound, we could completely incapacitate them." Cressida was impressed by the young scientist's insight. "How do we figure out which frequency to use?" Fennel was already running calculations as he responded. "We need to study their movements. We can run frequency tests. If we find the right one, we can stun them." The preparations for battle were underway. Though humanity lacked the technological superiority of their enemy, They were now relying on their intelligence to develop a plan to counter this new threat. The XO-12 defense line, stretching into the darkness of space, was humanity's last bastion of resistance. The night hunters, black ships gliding silently through the void, approached the colony like an invisible threat. On the headquarters screens, the number of these alien vessels kept growing. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Humanity had never faced such a fleet. General Cressida stood with clenched fists in the command center. The technicians and officers around her were focused on the terminal screens and radar signals. Suddenly, an officer shouted in a tense voice, "Enemy ships are within range." Cressida's voice did not waver. Her face was set with determination. "Prepare everyone. Order all units to activate the sound wave generators and light bombs." As the night hunter ships, like massive insects bursting from the shadows, launched their attack, the human ships defending the colony reinforced their shields. The first clash was as sudden and violent as a thunderstorm. The night hunter ships darted around the human defense line with incredible speed, striking from dark corners like spears. A human ship, Sentinel, became a primary target. The night hunters swirled around the ship at near light speed, then launched a storm of laser fire in less than a second, leaving the crew in shock. The Sentinel's shields held for a few seconds before electromagnetic waves erupted, draining the energy, and explosions echoed as its outer layer shattered. "Sentinels down," yelled an officer, fear and rage mingling on his face. "What about the others?" "Shield breakers heavily damaged but holding, sir. Weapon systems are still operational." Cressida tightened her jaw. Time was running out. "Activate the sound wave generators now," she ordered. Massive frequency generators, hidden in the heart of the defense line, powered up. These devices, locked onto the enemy's position, unleashed high-frequency sound waves with incredible force. As the first wave rippled through space, there was a strange echo in the void. The human ships felt only a slight tremor, but the effect on the night hunters was immediate. The alien ships shook violently. Some suddenly slowed down. These vessels, capable of moving at light speed and executing sharp maneuvers, began to sway erratically, as if they'd lost control. On the radar screens, the enemy blips slowed one by one, some coming to a complete stop. "Yes, it's working," shouted Fennel, a scientist on the team, his eyes glowing with excitement. But the victory was short-lived. The night hunters quickly recovered. The ships that had been stunned by the sound waves regained their footing and resumed the attack. Their technology and biology were far more resilient than humanity had imagined. One of them, Resolute, headed straight for the defense line, with the rest following. "Increase the frequency. Get the light bombs ready," Cressida shouted. This was their last card to play. Fennel pushed the generators to maximum output. Light bombs, mounted along the hulls of the ships defending XO-12, were simultaneously activated. These bombs, tiny stars in the dark, erupted into massive flashes a few seconds later. Brilliant white light flooded the depths of space, spreading in all directions. For a moment, the night hunter ships halted. The blast of light caused their shields to waver. Some even failed entirely. The combination of light and sound had completely paralyzed their visual and auditory senses. Some of the hunter ships, now blind and disoriented, collided with one another, turning into fireballs. In mere seconds, the darkness of space filled with the burning wreckage of night hunter vessels. "Now's the time. Order all units to open fire," commanded Cressida. The human ships unleashed a barrage of laser cannons, missile systems, and heavy weapons simultaneously. The enemy vessels, now paralyzed and defenseless, became easy targets. Red laser beams pierced the hulls of the night hunter ships, and antimatter explosions scattered fragments across the battlefield. One hunter ship split open, beams of light streaming from a massive tear in its body, before it exploded. Then another, and another. As Cressida scanned the wreckage of the battlefield, her voice softened. "We did it," she whispered. Despite the destruction, the victory tasted bittersweet. The night hunters had taken a heavy blow, but they weren't completely destroyed. Some ships could still be out there, lost in the darkness. "What about our losses?" Cressida asked. An officer quickly reviewed the reports. "Sentinel and Dawnwalker are gone. Shield breakers heavily damaged but reparable." Cressida nodded, thinking of the crew members they had lost. This wasn't just a victory, it was a warning. The night hunters were retreating, but that didn't mean they wouldn't return. "Fennel, stabilize the generator frequencies. Next time they come back, we need to be sure we can neutralize them completely," she ordered. "Yes, sir," Fennel replied, his face showing both resolve and the fatigue of battle. As the enemy ships faded into the depths of space like shadows, the wreckage of human ships and burnt metal fragments stood as grim evidence of the clash. Humanity had won, but the cost was high. And Cressida knew, those who challenge the darkness are always pursued by it.